Hi, welcome to Construction Update. These are the top 10 stories that contractors are reading this week. I'm Larry Stewart with ForConstructionPros.com.
And I'm Gigi Wood, staff writer with ForConstructionPros.com. At number 10, we have Will Offsite Prefab See a Renaissance in U.S. Construction? This story outlines 4 reasons why prefab construction is more than a trend. One of those reasons, for example, is the workforce shortage, which we all know is a big problem for the industry.
Yeah, the logistics behind prefab are a challenge, but the numbers really back it up. Number 9 on the list is the Home Depot launching an online rental reservation system and opening new locations. So from demolition tools like breakers and concrete saws to landscaping tools like tillers and sod cutters, trailers, moving vehicles, all the stuff that Home Depot rents, customers can now reserve and rent that equipment for pickup at its 1,300 rental locations in North America up to 30 days in advance. Good way to get equipment when you need it fast.
And at number 8, we have a story about how the $1.2 trillion infrastructure plan is set to boost the economy. Editor Jess Lombardo discusses how the plan would impact the construction industry and how some top construction firms are already seeing a momentum shift.
A lot of news, and number 7 on the list has to do with it as well. This is the announcement that Biden had agreed to the bipartisan infrastructure plan that it was developing in the Senate. So the president agreed to the amount of new spending proposed by this bipartisan group of senators was $579 billion in new spending for a total of $974 billion over 5 years, or $1.2 trillion over 8 years. So I think the length of the program is still in flux. This is paid for with no corporate tax increase and has $312 billion earmarked for transportation projects.
Number 6, we have 10 must-have tools for pavement striping. This story provides a list of tools a contractor would need for each stage of striping, from the steel broom to the 4-inch line stencil. This is a story you'll want saved to your phone for your next striping job.
From our experts in the pavement maintenance business, good story. Number 5 on the list is the world's first 3D printed school built in 18 hours. So using a proprietary Wholesome ink, this 3D printing process reduced the time, cost, and materials for building houses and schools while minimizing the environmental footprint by more than 50% compared to traditional methods. This partnership with Wholesome and its 3D ink, a CDC group, and 3D printer developer 14 Trees built this school in Malawi in southeastern Africa.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what they build next out there.
3D printing thing just keeps taking off. We get more and more stories about that every month now.
Well, next we have the Miami condo collapse, everything we know so far. The tragic collapse on June 24th has captured the nation's attention as crews sift through the rubble and officials try to find out what happened. This story provides details on the construction of the building, technology used during the search and rescue operation, and an analysis of why we think it happened or what we know now.
Yeah, and our Jonathan Kozlowski, editor of Concrete Contractor magazine, has been updating that story as new details come out. Number 3 on the list, no end in sight for engineering and construction costs as they edge upward for an 8th straight month. IHS Markit reports engineering and construction costs rose for the 8th month in a row in June, with all materials and equipment subcategories reporting increases for their 6th straight month. Although the rate of growth fell last month in several categories in that material and equipment subcategory, interestingly, the subcontractor labor subindex was down 6.3 points, but well into expansion territory. So there's some movement here in some of these materials subcategories. So I'm not sure that no end in sight is necessarily the most accurate headline, because it looks like things may be starting to turn, but the indexes are still all positive, like as in growth of costs.
Yeah, it sure seems to change from week to week.
Yeah, well, the lumber's down significantly. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Well, at number 2, we have a case study on the 931 homes that rely on retaining wall construction in Southern California. This is a really interesting story about how a housing complex is being built into the steep hillside of the base of the Santa Ana Mountains.
And number one on the list, falling lumber prices offer anti-inflation assurance, if not yet lower costs. Random Lengths framing lumber composite index dropped to $1,010 last week, a third less than when it peaked in May. But a year ago, that spot price index was $459. Prices for OSB sheeting remain high, and the U.S. Canadian governments remain at loggerheads over lumber tariffs. But the Fed's pointing to June's lumber price drop as an example of the kind of rational post-pandemic cost correction they expect to keep inflation in check. There's good news. It's going to keep the Fed out of raising interest rates, and lumber prices inevitably will start to come down, but we're still in pretty steep territory. So that's the list for this week. Gigi, thanks so much for your help.
Thanks, Larry.
And we appreciate you showing up for the list today. We'll have another one next week. Have a great weekend. Stay safe out there.